Abigail Posner here with a super duper episode of Decoded. Now, why do I say that? Well, as you can see, unlike most of the episodes where I actually speak with one person, in this case, I'm speaking with three amazing ladies. What I like to call these ladies are the Eng women with hard hats. Now, what does that mean? Let me give you a sense of who these amazing ladies are. First, a friend of mine from the fashion tech world, Heidi Lehmann, who is the Chief Commercial Officer and co-founder of Kenzen. I have Cathy White, an Environmental and Health Solutions Lead for Dow. And last but not least, Lisa Mallon, Executive Safety Environmental Manager at GE Renewable Energy. Super duper titles. What do they mean? I'm going to have you ladies talk about yourselves because you can do it much better than me.
But clearly, I consider myself a problem solver in the world of environmental health and occupational safety. And what I do on a day-to-day basis is partner with businesses and sites to understand what roadblocks or barriers they may face in making sure our mission is met of letting people go home in the same or even better condition than how they arrived at work that day.
What does that look like? What do you mean being safe? I'm going to get hit by something. I'm going to get sick by something. What does that mean?
Oh, yeah, it could be so many things. I think when we talk about the field of safety, or another example with health and what we call the field of industrial hygiene, there's just so many hazards that you could face on a day-to-day basis. But I'll give you an example of a few. I'm going into a facility next week, and I know it's a high noise facility. So we have a lot of conversations about how do we manage that risk, knowing, again, there's the day-to-day acute factor, but then long-term health impacts. Of course, we do not want to have any hearing loss instances occurring. So we start talking about, yes, kind of what I would call the hierarchy of controls, but how can we best eliminate or engineer out this hazard? And then if we go to the next step and we're not able to do that, then what can we provide in terms of personal protective equipment or other types of ways to minimize duration of exposure, those administrative options?
So it's almost like you are all the mothers of these workers, because just like a mother is constantly watching out for the little thing that the baby puts in his mouth, or the little toddler putting her finger in the socket. It's like it's preventative. It's also post injury. But Lisa, let me turn to you, because we got a sense of kind of what Cathy's world looks like. Would you say yours is similar or different?
It's very similar, and it's funny you use the analogy to a mother, because like any good mother, you should be constantly teaching and coaching. And I think that's the other aspect of the job. You need to be helping people, regardless of their role in the organization, to be better every day. And the same applies to people working in a safety environment. My job, I see it, is to partner with people in operations, to partner with people in engineering, and to partner with our people on the front line, whether it's employees or contracting partners, to understand what's coming next. What is the next risk that we need to take care of? What are things that are happening today? What are things that are happening next week or next year that we can foresee coming, and trying to find the best solutions. That might be in relation to locking out or isolating a piece of electrical equipment. It might be a way to do a heavy crane lift of turbine components. It could be a myriad of different things, but the people who do the job always know the best way to do it. And it's about figuring out, is that the safest way to do it? And if so, then can we change our processes and systems or even our engineering design to better fit the solution?
That's super interesting. So you're not there to impose a new technology or a new system, but how do you integrate and make sure that both sides kind of benefit?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's very much, what used to happen in the past is, the really smart people would have all the answers and push them down the organization.
Right.
And really the best innovative solutions come from the ground up. And it's about harnessing that energy and those people and those ideas and making them work. for the
Wow.
organization.
I mean, the day in the life for Kenzen, and so shameless self-promotion, I'm wearing our biometric, the front end of our biometric
Very cool.
platform right here. So what we do is physiologically monitor workforces to predict and prevent avoidable injuries that can impact safety and productivity on the job. So right now we're very focused on heat, fatigue, and exertion. So a day in the life for me is really serving people like Cathy and Lisa. So I work closely with industrial hygienists, and their main purview is, as they said, to keep the workforce safe and healthy. And the workforces they serve, and typically, the workforces we focus on are in very high risk scenarios. So where they're exerting quite a bit, where the temperatures are very, very hot, where they possibly come to work dehydrated, haven't had enough to drink, maybe too much to drink the night before, or they're not acclimatized. So they're new workers coming into a new scenario, or maybe they've been in one type of temperature, such as air conditioning all weekend, all of a sudden they're back in a hot work environment. So that puts them very much at risk for heat, fatigue, and overexertion injuries. So I work to educate and then deploy to those workforces because there's a mentality, and I'd love to hear to Cathy and Lisa agree with me, from solutions like Kenzen. So the broader space we're in is called smart PPE. So smart personal protective equipment. So, I guess dumb personal or traditional personal protective equipment might be a helmet or a smock or gloves that you're wearing. But when you add sensors, cloud connectivity, and the delivery of real-time safety information, it becomes smart. And this really shifts the mentality of a safety manager or industrial hygienist from accidents, oh no, something happened, what do we do, to near misses.
Right.
Something almost happened, so how do we adjust workflow, shift schedules, and other things in the workplace to maximize both safety and productivity. And, we've worked across various domains, renewable energy in surprisingly cold environments up in Maine, manufacturing. So, places where you might be around a smelter or a chemical plant where the temperature is 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Construction sites where you're baking in the sun, or lone workers who are removed from the rest of the workforce and the conditions they're rough and it's tough to monitor them in person, so you need to do it remotely.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I came to the company I'm at is because, like I said, I was an industrial engineer. And to tell a little bit about my story, I was doing all this, standardized work. This is what you're going to do kind of thing. I was not feeling that wonderful about what I was trying to do. I didn't really feel like I had a mission in what I was doing. And at the same time, my mom, also working in the automotive industry, wound up having carpal tunnel syndrome and surgery. And after walking through that process with her, and it really established that deep personal connection to how important it is to protect people, and that people should go home and be in great condition. We should be supporting that in the workplace. And after having the opportunity to be involved a little more in health and safety, that's what segued me over to the company I'm at now. And what really, it helps spawn my further love for what I do, because everything I do, I do think about my mom, and my dad's an electrician. So on the safety side, I have that. When we talk about stuff like lockout, tagout, he's there, he's on the front line, arc flash hazards, right? And even like I mentioned, fatigue and shift work. My dad used to work 2 jobs and shift work. And so all of these things I can easily draw a connection to. I think it's some special people that go into this profession because we come from some kind of connection like that in a place of caring, but from a personal perspective and knowing that you're impacting those lives every day, it's just very, very fulfilling.
I actually started in safety after witnessing quite a bad accident as a very young projects engineer working in a factory. And it made it very clear on my head that, I didn't ever want to see that again. So then I had to do something about it. And it kind of pivoted my career a little bit away from, engineering straight on into safety engineering at that time. And I remain passionate about it because that story and that image that, from all those years ago will never go away. It'll always be there. And I think with that experience, and most people have a story, you will find most people who are very passionate about safety have a story, whether it is a family member or something they've seen or been part of themselves. But I think that, coupled with just a natural instinct to be cooperative, really helps in this role, because I'm aware that, like we've talked about, you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. But if you have that kind of instinct to collaborate, be cooperative, and pull people in and make them part of the solution, then that is really helpful in this type of role.
Let's go back to the reference to mommy for a second, because we've all had mommies. Some of us are mommies. Many of our good friends are mommies. Do you think that being a woman in this field is, somehow makes a difference? Do you feel like your approach, how people approach you, what you can contribute as a female in this, what I'm assuming is very male-dominated world, that has an impact or creates a different kind of impact?
So for me, I think, and maybe this is just completely personal opinion here, but I think it's easier to build trust with people in the front line. And it is a very male-dominated industry, like you said. But I don't like the reasons that that's the case, because I think it's because you're naturally not seen as any kind of threat initially. So you have to then build your credibility once you get there. But the benefit outweighs, the benefit is if you can have trust, then anything's possible. And I think that, certainly in my own particular case, that's been my experience.
Right. So you have to, in some ways, it's harder to build the bridge initially, but then once you do, there's this opening up.
Yes.
What about the two of you, Heidi and Cathy?
Cathy, please.
Okay. I was thinking about that too. And I've definitely had a lot of experience in more of the male-dominated environments, both in the automotive industry and even today with our shift worker population. I find it really interesting, and I know we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion, but certainly there's perspectives that males bring versus females. There's sometimes things they see that I don't see, and then there's things I see that a man might not see. I think a couple of examples that come to mind for me, going back to personal protective equipment, and we're talking about fit. So it's really important. That's the last barrier of defense. In many cases, we don't want to rely on it, but where we are using it, we want to make sure it fits really well.
Right.
And something that we can help bring to the table is making sure we have that proper fit. If you need to suit up, if you need to wear gloves, how do we make sure that the entire population is accommodated, which also is part of ergonomics. So I'm always looking at that aspect when we're also designing workplaces, talking about reach and clearance. We want to accommodate the entire population. So we're encompassing that female population. But then there's always those one-off things that come up. And one that I was thinking about was we've been exploring exoskeleton technology at length. And there was a vendor we were working with, and the design of their exoskeleton had these plates that pressed up against your chest. And I was working with our occupational health group. Yeah. So of course that's what we jumped to, right? We're thinking, but yeah, none of the guys working on this were thinking about chest plates, but we were. And then, yeah, sure enough, we're doing research. If you have breast implants, they could rupture. And okay, I think we're done here, right? But to me, that's where this diversity of perspectives can be really helpful when we're trying to get after some of these issues.
Wow.
So I guess I have two things to say here. One is that, going back to 2018, my first time going to industrial work sites, and here I am, a New Yorker out of the media space, used to taking meetings in, Times Square, getting all dressed for them. I was very intimidated. And this was going into the middle of nowhere in Fowler, Indiana, or up in, the mountains, Stetson Mountain up in Maine, or, plants in Evansville, Illinois. And, what are they going to think of me? And, what do I wear, and how is this going to go? And I overthought it. And am I going to come in with swagger? How does this work out? I mean, and I have experienced nothing but respect, patience and just welcoming on all of the work sites. Once we started talking about what we had and what we could do, the messenger, their gender, their background didn't make any difference. I always felt like I've been taken, very seriously, never made to feel like I was out of place in any way. So, I think being a woman, especially one who hadn't really been around workforces or industrial sites before, just like anything new, but I guess this was just so different from anything I'd ever done. But I absolutely love it now. I think, I've met some of the most real people, have the utmost respect for what they do, just every day, how they're putting themselves on the line, especially, not that office jobs, nothing wrong with them, but it's just a whole different level of having to put yourself out there and get into it every day, because most of these jobs are highly skilled. So it's both physical and mental, intellectual, which probably most people might not associate with these roles, but it's absolutely true. So on the product design side, so I sort of have the reverse story of Cathy. This is kind of going back to the early days of Kenzen, and so we were very fortunate to have a lot of females on our founding team. And we wanted to, there's 8 different places where we can get the signals we need for the Kenzen device. And they all work equally well, but perhaps the best one, edging out all the others just slightly, is if you wear it right under the heart, on your chest. And so the first product was designed to fit there, and we had a partnership with a very large material science company. There was an adhesive, and we are so excited about this product. And so went up to the first deployment. Lisa knows exactly the one I'm talking about, up here in Maine. And here we are, and we're showcasing everything. The guys can't wait to put it on. And all of a sudden, this proof of concept is a complete failure, because it's all women. And we did some testing in Switzerland, I guess men that didn't have a lot of body hair. And so these men up in Maine did have a lot of that in space. And so they were in pain. They were ripping it off. They're like, so I have to take this off every day. We were getting pictures of the adhesive with like curly black hair on it and rashes. And so the joke now, and it took us, a good 7 months to retrofit the product, because the whole design had to be rethought. And we actually ended up on the arm here, which seems to fit very nicely into the workflow. But it's probably a rare example of women designing a product for men that just didn't work, because we didn't consider the male anatomy.
How are we going to be evolving? Anyone want to start?
For me, we're on the road, and it's about being predictive. In terms of safety in particular, it's about being predictive, and devices like Kenzen are, start to build that picture. But how do we kind of surround the human with ways that we can predict risk that's going to happen? Because if we can start to do that with a reliability, then my goodness, we're going to have a massive impact on our workforce.
There are a large percentage now of individuals of all different levels of academic success that are seeking out trade schools as opposed to colleges, because they don't want to be stuck behind a desk, and they realize by being an engineer and being in the field or being a technician of some sort, they can bring all those worlds together. Abby, you and I, there's some long days in New York when you have just realized, shoot, I've been behind this desk for 10 hours and my posture is probably like this. So Cathy, that's when I pull up one of your videos. But if you can have, a work-life balance that also means I'm out doing physical things, I'm helping, I'm building, I'm contributing, and I'm using my mind in a degree, I think more and more you're seeing that transition. And I also know for a fact in 2018 in the US, wind turbine technician was the fastest growing job in America. Wow. So 50,000 jobs had been added that year. Right. So, and I know just from, meeting some of the team again up in Maine, that was our first deployment. So it holds a special place for me. But, these were 25 to 50-year-olds who were solving big problems. They'd climb up, or be lifted up 300 feet to get to the top of a turbine. Then they were up there for quite some time, diagnosing it and fixing it and optimizing it. And there's a lot of people I know who are very smart, maybe engineers, that couldn't do that. So it's a complicated job, and I think it's beginning to attract more and more people, especially as energy and clean energy in the future become front and center. So
Right. Well, that's super exciting that we're going to be creating technology that helps predict potential challenges, accidents, health concerns, so that our workforce will be healthier. But there's also this kind of more communal social change that we are potentially seeing, which is quite gratifying, where people really recognize the need for all these different types of labor, all these different types of meeting challenges and solving. And, I hope that they learn from all of you net to ensure a much more collaborative future to it. Thank you so much. I hope this was at least interesting to all of you, because it was super interesting to me.
It was. Thank you very much.
Good. Yeah, this was fun.